Thank you everybody for joining. We still have about 4 or 5 minutes before we start. We've already got people jumping on. Thank you for our guests and participants as well as our panelists. So we're going to enjoy a little bit more music as we wait. So we'll get started in a few minutes.
I just left Target. Sweet and crunchy is there. Every single one of these candles are amazing.
I got this feeling inside my bones. It goes electric, baby, when I turn it on. Off from my city, off from my home. We're flying up, no ceiling when we in our zone. I got that sunshine in my pocket, got that good soul in my feet. I feel that hot blood in my body when it drops. Ooh, I can't take my eyes off it, moving so phenomenally. You're more like the way we rock it, so don't stop. And under the lights, when everything goes, nowhere to hide when I'm getting you close.
Yeah, Dave, I did see David posted a note here for his muting. I think you have the ability to mute your sound. If you have some background noise, you can mute that. Right now, everybody's on mute except me. So we'll continue again. We got about 2 or 3 minutes, and we'll get started. We got people jumping on now as we start the webinar. So thank you for joining, and we'll get started in a few minutes. Okay, we got right at 10 o'clock. We got some people still jumping on. We know we've had quite a few people register. So as we get started here, you will see more and more people jump on. So it's about 10. We'll got a couple more people jumping on. So again, thank you. What an amazing topic. And I think this is a topic that has been very near and dear to most companies, especially over the past couple years, and we're going to talk about it. And the goal today is, whether you're a listener or a panelist, is to discuss what we believe is going to be a continuous topic that's going to face most companies, especially in the industrial market. And so again, we're excited about those that have joined us. So we have different folks, and we want to welcome you. Now, for those that have joined, if you look at your screen, you will see, if you look at our screen right now, we're all smaller screen because we're going to get ready to unshare this in a few minutes. But if you have your screen up, if you look in the top right-hand corner, you will see 3 dots. Those 3 dots, if you click on those dots, you can actually change your name. And if your name's not there, you can go ahead and type your name in, and you can put a dash, and then you can put your company. So when we do come off screen, it may be a way to make sure we know who everybody's from. So again, we got more and more people jumping on, so that's great. So again, let's go ahead and go to our introductions. We're going to take a few minutes to introduce our panelists. I'm going to ask Kelsey right now to take off. She's running our presentation today, and our presentation is not the PowerPoint that I'm used to. It's Canva. So I'm learning. If you haven't used Canva, it's pretty neat. So anyway, we're going to talk about, I believe, a great panel to talk about this subject. And I'm going to jump right in due to time. We only have 1 hour here, so I want to respect everybody's time. But I'm going to quickly introduce. And when I introduce you, if you would just raise your hand, and we'll start with David Ballinger. David, there's a little button that says raise your hand. If you do that, we can see you. Perfect. Dave raised his hand. So David, I've known David for many years. David has a tremendous background in staffing, over 25 years in various leadership roles. He's been with Condustrial since 2020 and has lived in that industrial manufacturing space. And David, you've helped hundreds and hundreds of companies with their recruiting and retaining their employees. So thank you for joining and contributing. I think I'm excited to hear about some of your thoughts, and your years of experience are going to be great for this panelist. Gary Davis. Gary, if you'll raise your hand. Gary's another. I've known Gary for several years. Gary has had an extensive background in human resources and recruiting. 12 plus years as director of operations. Over 26 years, Gary, you don't look that old. 26 years as staffing and recruiting. So you're bringing a lot of experience as well. That's what I like about this. We're not dealing with people that's been in it for a few years. You guys have a long history, and over 2.5 years as corporate business development manager for Condustrial. So thank you, Gary. You're bringing a lot of experience to the panel as well. Then Mark, wow, another 30 plus years of sales and marketing experience. You know, I speak Mark's language. He's a sales and marketing guru. He's passionate about helping companies. And I'm excited, Mark, because I know you talk to a lot of people who are struggling. So I'm excited to hear some of your points as well. You've been with Condustrial since 2014. So you've got not only a strong history with staffing and sales and marketing experience, but you have a long history with Condustrial. So thank you for being a part of this. And then we have 2 additional special guests, Kim Mann. Kim, thank you for joining. Kim is the talent management consultant at South Carolina Department of Commerce. So we have some other folks from great states, but obviously I live in South Carolina. So thank you, Kim, for joining. Kim's been a great just resource for both the ING and Total Industrial. So thank you, Kim. Your background, you've been working over 15 years in workforce development with technical schools, workforce development, economic development. So you're going to be able to talk to us about a wide section of our state. And I'm sure I know the Department of Commerce networks with other states and the problems we're having in this state and the issues we're facing, other states are facing as well. And then Robbie Willingham. Robbie is probably one of the most, knowledgeable person on health benefits that I've met. And Robbie, I've known Robbie for a while. Robbie is so passionate about helping companies with health benefits. And Robbie's been with Even Concepts since 2015, but he knows more than it's amazing. And Robbie, I want to thank you because I hear so many people talk about health benefits, but very few companies focus on it. So we're going to have your input as well from this. So thank you for participating. So everybody on this call brings something to the table. So I'm excited about that. So, but before we jump right into our questions, I do want to pull the presentation back up, and I do want to give just a 1 minute to Condustrial because that's our sponsor today. And Condustrial is an incredible company that, like I mentioned before, they're a full service supplemental staffing, recruiting, workforce management. They work in multiple areas, so they're able to bring a lot of discussion on multiple areas. And those 4 areas that they're focused on, and Kelsey, I might have you go to that next slide. Those 4 areas are construction, new construction. With all the new construction going on right now, they support a lot of contractors, subcontractors, especially those that are struggling to beef up their staff for these construction projects. And we know that's an issue right now for a lot of companies and a lot of projects because they can't find good people or they can't recruit enough people to staff the job. So, and then industrial, which is focused heavily on the manufacturing industry. They help service that. Medical, and we all know what's happening in the medical world for the shortage of people and staff, and they support the medical industry. And then also Travelers Marine, they also support ports and areas where shipyards where those travelers for outages, they support those projects by providing travelers to go to these places to help perform these jobs. So an incredible company, and thank you, Condustrial. So now let's jump right in. We got about 50 minutes, so let's jump in and talk about our subject. And that's what we're here today to talk about, our subject. So let's jump right in. First of all, I'm going to refer to refer to Kim Mann on this. Kim from South Carolina Department of Commerce. You know, we talked earlier this year and we talked about this subject. And your observations, and I know predominantly you're coming from a South Carolina standpoint, but do you see recruiting and retaining employees still a major issue for employers now?
Oh, yes, definitely. In this tight labor market. And I have to say that most of the companies that I talk to, they think they have a recruiting problem or a recruiting issue, but retaining your employees goes hand in hand with that. So if you're retaining your employees, you don't have a recruiting issue, not as much of one anyway. So yes, I think that that's going to continue to be an issue as we go forward. And I really think that companies really need to be focusing on retaining their employees.
Now, David Ballinger, I'm going to kind of refer back to you because I know you deal with manufacturers. Is manufacturers still struggling? I know they were struggling heavily early in the year. Is manufacturers still struggling, or is it kind of settled down? I think, Dave, you're on mute. I'm sorry. Make sure if you're
mute. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, there's still a struggle out there. And there's such a shift going on right now with manufacturing trying to adjust to really the new economy. And that's post-COVID and how it's affected, the workforce. And so a lot of them are still settling into that and where their play may be. But definitely still an issue. And I piggyback on Kim's comment. A lot of these issues still remain being retaining employees. And I echo that. That's a big issue.
Now, I can't bring everybody on every question, but Gary, I do want to refer back to you when in the standpoint of contractors, because I know you deal with a lot of construction projects. Are contractors, subcontractors still struggling to find people and retain? I know I hear a lot of times contractors say they lose people to other companies? Is this still an issue?
Yes, Chris, I believe it still is an issue for a lot of contractors and their subs. A lot of them now are struggling with schedules. That schedules have gotten pushed out due to COVID, and then there's supply issues, and all that trickles down into the manpower side of finding the key talent, keeping key talent available for critical projects and timelines. So it's still an ongoing struggle of adding key components to that area, to the individual projects and key talent when it's available and when it's needed. But finding that key talent is also a critical piece right now still.
Awesome. Let's go to the next question here. And next question, have you still seen a problem for manufacturers and service providers? And I want to thank you guys already kind of answered that question. So yes, we're still seeing issues, maybe not as a big of a problem there once was early, but I think it is a problem. And that's what we're going to be addressing today. Let's go to the third question here, just kind of setting the stage. Mark, do you see companies tend to focus more on recruiting or retaining employees? What's more of the hot topic or major topic for companies?
When they approach us particularly, you usually hear about they can't find people, or we have all these open positions that we can't get people for. So the focus seems to be on the recruiting end, more so, as I see it, than the retention. But
now I'm going to go over to Robbie. Robbie, I know you deal with a lot of companies and try to help them with their benefits. Do you see more companies trying to focus more on the retained employee side, or it's still heavily focused more on recruiting?
I think most companies are trying to recruit new employees rather than find somebody within their own company that could possibly fill that position in a skilled position. So a lot of companies fail to kind of promote within their company, and they always go look outside for recruitment of something better.
Awesome. Let's go to another question here. Another question. Do you think companies need to have a strategic plan to deal with both issues? So again, guys, hold tight for those that are participating. I'm going to get you involved in a minute, but we're setting the stage for this webinar. So do you think companies need to have a strategic plan to deal with both issues? And so I'm going to go back to David. David, do you think companies should have a plan, and do most companies have a plan?
You know, I think they build their plans around their immediate issues that they're faced with. And so, but in answer to your question, most definitely they need to have a strategic plan. If they're focused on both sides of the equation, then they might eliminate one side of the equation. And so definitely, you know, on the retention side, I like what Robbie said about promoting from within. A lot of companies, they'll go outside real quick before they might have somebody inside, which also increases retention when employees are promoted within.
Now, Kim, I'm going to ask Kim with Department of Commerce. Kim, is companies reaching out to the Department of Commerce to try to help them with building these plans for their business, of trying to come up with ways to recruit or retain?
Yes, and that is one of the things that I go in and talk to companies about, because like I said, most of them reach out to me because they have a recruiting issue, but we go in and we dive deep into it, and it's really a retention issue. And they're not focusing on their internal customers, which is their employees. And those are actually some of the best people to help recruit as well. Not just, promoting them from within, but also recruiting your outside talent as well. So I think, they really just need to make sure that their employees feel engaged, they feel heard. And, again, they also need to feel like there's a place to grow. They have a way to grow, and they need to feel valued. So yes, I think a lot of the companies that I talk to, I try to make them start looking internally first before they're looking externally.
So I love this, and Kim, want
Yep,
to
sorry.
refer back to Bill. Bill had a great point in his chat box. Recruiting is an immediate set of actions to address immediate issues, whereas retention is a longer term actions. We tend to focus on short-term actions. So thank you, Bill. I love that chat. Let's go to our next question here. We only got a couple more. Have you seen recruiting still be a problem for manufacturing? We've kind of we addressed that. In your observations, are recruiting and retaining employees an issue? We talked about that. What do companies tend to focus more on? We talked about that. Any other questions? Kelsey, any questions from I think we got most of the questions. Any other ones left before we go into our panel? I want to make sure we addressed all those before we jump into our topics.
Yep, there's nothing else in the chat, so we can keep
Okay.
on going.
Okay, awesome. So here's where I think going to be our interesting part of this session is you as a participant, we're going to ask you to get involved. So we're going to start right with our subject, how to recruit the right talent. We have over 22 folks on here. So I'm going to ask you to participate in the chat box, or you can raise your hand. And I want you to pick one of these topics. These topics are related to recruiting, how to recruit the right talent. We're also going to do one about retaining. Each one of these topics has a question. And so once you pick the topic, we'll ask the question. If you want to direct it toward a certain panelist, you can do that in the chat box, or I'll pick the panelist for you. But who would like to pick the first? Somebody go ahead in the chat box and let us know what you would select on your first topic. Let's see if we got anybody in their chat box. Kelsey, if you can kind of review that for us. Anybody want to pick the first topic? So not everybody go at once. Anybody want to pick the first topic? Well, I will tell you what, I will call on, I see Eric Rouse. Eric, I'll call on you. Eric Rouse with Industrial Reliability. Eric, if you hear me, is there a particular subject here you want to get us started? Which one of these topics you'd like to know more about? So maybe Eric's on mute.
Eric in the chat said bonus dollars.
Okay, bonus dollars, awesome. So let's go over to Mark Aycock. Mark, the question is on bonus dollars. Do you think companies who have a sign-on bonus in place or a bonus if employee stays for a length of time is an effective way to recruit new employees? And Mark, what's the highest sign-on bonus you have heard for maybe entry-level, mid-manager, senior-level positions? Mark, can you take a crack at that question?
Okay, well, I see a lot of sign-on bonuses ranging from, $250 to over $1,000, $2,500. It just kind of depends on the company, the position, and what it is that they're looking to achieve. I believe there is value in some sort of, not necessarily a sign-on bonus, but an employment bonus after you've worked a period of time, then you're eligible for that. It's kind of like your first raise, so to speak.
So Kim does, thank you, Mark. Kim, does sign-on bonuses work? Is that an effective way to recruit?
I don't think it's effective. I think it gets the person maybe in the door, but it's not going to retain them. And
we're just talking about recruiting right now. We'll jump on.
Well, I know. I know, but I'm saying, I think it helps recruit, maybe get the person in the door, but that doesn't mean it's going to keep them as an employee. The other thing you have to be careful about with sign-on bonuses is, are you also incentivizing your workforce? Because it can alienate your current workforce by giving sign-on bonuses to your new employees and not looking at your internal customers. So I think it sounds good. I'm not sure. I don't think it's that effective.
Now in the chat box, if one of our listeners, if you are if your company's doing sign-on bonuses, just put yes. I'd like to see if anybody in the chat are doing sign-on bonuses. So again, is sign-on bonuses effective? And that is a strategy. Kim's saying that it might be a strategy to get them in the door, but it's enough to get them to recruit. So
and Chris, can I also say that
Yes.
I don't think it should be all like get it the minute you start working there. I think there should be a 30, 60, 90 day. If you're going to use it, do a 30, 60, 90 day.
Awesome. So let's go over to our second topic. Let's have someone else from our listener. Thank you, Eric. Anybody, before I call on you, if you'd like to pick another subject, put in the chat box what you'd like to hear and let's discuss. So we talked about bonus dollars. What's the next subject would you like to hear more about?
Chris, we had a couple people mention college and university.
Okay, great. And let's jump over and Robbie, I'm gonna talk with you on this. I'm gonna direct the question. Do you think companies should interact more with local or state universities in terms of recruiting talent to fill their open positions? And if so, any recommendations how to effectively do this?
I do believe that they should, because a lot of people have pride in the universities that they went to. And so with them working with those universities, maybe you've got ties to South Carolina or Gardner-Webb, and recruiting with them, you've got already something in common with those people. And it's going to be a great way to interact with them at those type of alumni events and those type of things to get in the door with more and more people.
So what about go over to Gary? Gary, from your standpoint, is college and universities, do companies take advantage of that?
I think you start to see more and more on the skilled trade sides, construction management side. I think you see more and more competitive folks trying to get into that side of the business, because that's a significant need, but also trade schools. Four-year college degree is not always the best approach. I think working with your hands and getting to that skilled trades and training is definitely a key factor for growth and filling that missing link that we have over the next 10 years for skilled trades.
Yeah, and we see companies support, and Alton will send, I'm seeing more companies sending people to career days and on-site days to start building relationships. And I think that's a strategic plan, is especially depending on where your business is at, how far you guys are recruiting. If you're not tied in with a technical school or college or university, I think that has to be in your strategic plan to be able to recruit new talent. And so that should be. Let's go to another topic here before I pick one. Does anybody have, for those that are listening, any other topics you'd like to hear? We're going to try to hit all of our topics, so we're going to be brief. I want to hit as many. Okay, interview process. I like that, Jarrett May. So interview process. So I'm going to go back over to David. I'm going to refer this to David Ballinger on the interview process. David, how many interviews should a prospective employee go through to be hired on at a company? How long should the interviews last? And what are some questions that should be asked in those interviews? So there's 2 or 3 questions that I pointed out. So if you can remember those, I can repeat those if you'd like.
Well, let me just say the interview process is critical, and depending on the job you're interviewing for might determine whether it needs to be 1 interview, 2 interviews, or multiple. Depending on what position you're looking for, you need to decide in your strategic plan whether it needs to be a one-on-one interview or a panel interview, where you bring in other people from the organization that have vested interest in these positions. But what you're trying to achieve is the person's skill set, but you're also trying to achieve, is this person going to be a good fit for for my company.
Now,
Are
do
they-
you prefer that panel style of interview for those that on there where they're coming in and talking to a group of people, or individual interviews? Which in your perspective, which one's more powerful?
One-on-one is less intimidating to the candidate. Panel interviews can be somewhat intimidating, and that ought to be part of the strategic plan, because it's what kind of questions are you wanting to ask, but also what kind of answers are you trying to get from the candidate, and how they're going to fit into your organization. But so, I don't know if there's a preference. I would say one-on-one. And, I always think you have to, Simon Sinek said one time, business is personal. And I think we ought to approach, anything we do in the business world as personal, because you're dealing with people. And so there needs to be some.
Gary, Gary, when you're interviewing someone, some of the questions, some people go by a script, and maybe is there certain things that should be asked, especially, and you deal with more of the skills trades, is there certain things that should be asked during the interview to making sure you're recruiting the right talent?
When you get to the skilled side, there's certain key questions. If you're looking for welders, for example, or electricians, there's nuances to codes, or specific things you're doing in a welding process or procedure. In that interview process, if you're looking for construction managers or project managers, certain key aspects of schedule and scope, even terminology that would be key identifiers that you would want to know that's critical for your company. So I do think that there's some key qualifiers that you have as buried in the top of, I'll say buried, but sitting in your company qualifications. You want to ask those specific questions, and even skilled side. You can ask those screening qualifiers early on in that interview process to see if they're truly a welder or electricians or whatever skilled trade you're working with.
Awesome. Let's go over to our next topic, videos, and Kelsey, I'll come back to you. I think there's a couple more after that. So, and I'm going to refer back to Robbie, because Robbie, I know you do videos a lot, and I love it. I love your videos, because let's face it, we're media driven people. Do you think utilizing videos to promote your company events and special activities where employees are interacting and posting those on social media, is that effective when recruiting people?
Yeah, I think videos do two things. Videos show your culture more than a PDF or a Word document. Maybe you have an employee speaking or something like that, somebody within your company. And the second thing they do is they get more engagement. People are more likely to watch a video than they are to sit there and click on a PDF or open up a PDF. So even if it doesn't have sound or anything, has subtitles, they've done studies that say it's 6 out of 10 times more likely to be watched than somebody opening up a PDF.
But for some of us guys that have been around for a while, video is different. So Mark, from a sales perspective, I know you very heavily on the marketing side. Is videos helped Condustrial in terms of?
Yes, video actually, is go back to what David said about it's a personal thing. Video is more personal than an email or what have you. If you're doing a follow-up with somebody, and the follow-up you have with them is a video of you basically saying all the same things you would say in an email. It differentiates. You care. You took a little more time to follow up with that person, and you made it personal, somewhat of a face-to-face.
Now, Robbie, we may have somebody here listening that's never done a video for their company. There is anything you could recommend for those people that maybe never created a video, or any steps, something simple people could take?
So for those of you that have an iPhone, there's a software already on your phone. It's called iMovie. You can record and go straight to that. It'll help you do the transitions. You can throw music to it. That's a simple way to do that. Also, Canva is another great one. free product that you can use for videos, maybe $2.99 a month, I think, for the starter package. But you just got to start. Everybody starts somewhere. Everybody's terrified to put their face on social media. And it's just about starting. The way I look at video real quick is if you ever got on a Zoom call and somebody doesn't have their camera on, interacting with, blank screen's kind of tough while you're sitting there with your camera on. So always think about it that way. You don't like to interact with people when their screen's off. So use that to your advantage and turn your screen on every time.
Okay, guys, we're going to speed up a little bit here because watching our time. Let's go, Kelsey. Any other topics that anybody put in the chat box? I think I did see one, Kelsey, on widening your search. So let's go to that one real quick. And I'll address this to Kim. Kim, are companies having to widen their searches to find quality and talented employees? And if so, how are they implementing relocation packages for those people? What's your thoughts about widening your search?
Well, I'm not going to talk about relocation packages because that's recruiting people from out of the state.
Yes.
I know that's a good thing, but when I talk about widening your searches, I think of looking at the untapped populations that they haven't been recruiting in before, such as the military, and also your individuals with disability, your second chance individuals, as well as the high schools. People don't think of, there are great people, they're great students coming out of high schools with great skills that they didn't used to have before. And actually, and I'm going to put a plug in for Commerce. Commerce has regional workforce advisors that work in all the workforce development areas, and they're connected to all the schools in their area. They put on lots of events and things to connect businesses with the schools and the students that are coming out of those schools. So yes, there's a lot of kids coming out going to the college and university route, but there's a lot of kids that are coming out that haven't decided what route they're going.
Let me push, Gary, have you seen companies widen their search and in terms of recruiting for new projects, especially as these companies are moving out of state to different states?
I think so. I believe so. I've seen, obviously South Carolina and the upstate is a great area of the country. Our industry is expanding, and which brings more and more construction. There's more construction companies from outside the state coming in to do projects, which in our world, and I think for other companies too, brings talent into the state from outside because of our growth, but it also brings more residents and long-term people that once they get here, a lot of them tend to stay. So I think that's where we see an opportunity in bringing people from outside the state, is to complete the projects and help with the growth of what's going on in the state of South Carolina, whether it's the upstate or the Midlands or the low country. We all see that same aspect of growth brings people.
Okay, we still got a few more bullet points, so we're going to speed up so we can get over to the retain slide. This one's health benefits. Robbie, do you think having an effective health benefit plan in place will help you recruit the right employees?
Yeah, and I think you got to take it one step further, and you've got to put a dollar value to your health benefits. So in that interview process, in that time, that short amount of time you've got to attract that employee, you got to say, well, hey, the benefits that we offer, and know and educate that person and say, this is going to cost us as the company $7,000. So when you're offering that $40,000, $50,000 a job range, you're really talking about $60,000, because those are the benefits that you offer. And paying more than 50%, paying towards dependents. Those are things that are completely tax-free for a company that you've got to get to the bottom of and say, okay, this is a tax-free benefit. We're not paying taxes on this, something we've got to educate people on and we've got to promote in that interview process.
So I like that. And because everything we're providing is the value. And so I don't think, do you think, not really knowing or understanding what you're offering, is that a good strategy for companies?
I think that's the number one fault that individuals have, is they don't understand their current health benefit plan. And when they speak with a current employee or somebody that's coming on board, they say, yeah, we offer medical, dental, vision. And they don't really, talk about the life insurance that they offer and that we care about your family. And we, if something were to happen to you, our company cares about your family and wants them to be able to get back on their feet. And, they can word things just slightly different in the interview process to really help that out. And their broker can provide exactly what the cost is for the employer per employee. And that's a great way that I have found to show people how much you care for your employees.
So the next few bullet points, I'm going to ask you to keep your answer brief, just because we got several left and we're going to jump over. We got a few minutes before we jump to the next topic. So again, we got a few bullet points left. Let's go. I'm going to ask this question to, we'll go back over to Mark. Mark, in your belief, do you believe new hires are more interested in the amount of vacation days or paid time off than they are about other areas of benefits?
I know that it's more, but it is something that's an important feature to a lot of folks that are being hired today.
So thank you. So anybody have, let me go over to, so David from the manufacturing, anything any example where a manufacturing employer that you dealt with has creatively offered that maybe help recruit people from a standpoint of marketing, vacation, or paid time off?
Yeah, we're seeing a lot more people moving towards paid time off or PTO time, because employees don't have to identify what they're taking the time for. They just have a certain number of days per year, and so a lot more companies are going to that platform. Besides,
are they making people wait, so they got to be there a certain amount of time before they get PTO, or do they come?
Some do. Some give a certain amount day one, and then they earn that as they go through the year.
Do you recommend a mixture of both?
Yes.
Okay, we're good. Let's go over to Kim. Do you think on a job posting you should include a salary range? Should a salary range be included on a job posting?
That's a tough one. Personally, I don't think it should. That's personally, I'm not, but I guess they need to know, because they need to know if it's worth their time to talk to the company. If you have a salary range versus, just exactly what the hour, what the pay is going to be, because I think you kind of lock yourself in when you put a specific salary on a job description, because you may want to pay that person more depending on what they bring to the table and where they've been and what they're doing. So of course, then maybe they don't have the experience, and maybe you still want to bring them on, but you want to bring them up to where they want to be. So
Mark, do you agree with that you should or should not have salary range on a job?
I like having a salary range on a job, basically because it shows them kind of a baseline, but it also shows them their potential earnings.
Let's go over to Gary. Gary, a referral program. Do you think having an internal referral program in place with your employees makes a difference for finding the right talent? If so, do you have any examples of companies that do a referral program?
Yes, I do think referral programs are definitely beneficial. I know in our world, we trust a trusted employee that we have that refers a coworker. They don't want to work side by someone that doesn't carry the skills needed for the job. And also that employee doesn't want to get a black eye from referring someone that's not going to show up and be timely and be attentive to details, the things we're looking for employees. I do know from a referral standpoint or from a referral amount, I've seen anything, and I'll keep mine to the skilled trades, the maintenance side, be anywhere from $500 that's paid out over time of up to 4 to 5 months if that employee stays, that referred employee. And I've seen some companies, there's one in Spartanburg in particular, that pays up to 15% of the annual salary for a key position. It's difficult to find. And this is, so, and that's a big number, but they've actually, I know, I've been told by a reliable person inside, they've paid it twice because it's a key role and it's very difficult to find. So when they find that right person and it's a referral, they're willing to pay for that person. So I think so. I think it's definitely helpful, but it has to be in a controlled environment as well. There's certain parameters you have to put in place to control it over time.
Now, let me go over to Robbie, another point. Rob, do you think companies need to treat their employees or prospective employees more like customers? Do you think they need to treat them more like customers?
Yeah, and I would say even more like family. Without employees, you're unable to do anything. We've only got 2 hands and 2 feet. We can only talk to so many people in a day. Without employees, you can't do anything. And as a leader, and as somebody that has employees myself, it's, one of those things you got to lead by example, and you've got to show people that, maybe they're more than an employee. Maybe they're, somebody that is going to have a career with you and something you can build with them, and share, your experiences with the company and that kind of thing. So yes, I do think as a customer, but I think it's even more than that, because customers can be replaced a lot easier than employees.
Well, let's go over, again, we could talk, I love this topic because there's so much to talk about. And obviously we're doing it in a fast format. So again, if you're on the participant, if you have a specific recruiting need or an issue, you can always direct that. And we'll talk to one of our panelists and they can answer your question directly as well. So let's jump over to retaining the right talent. We got a couple bullet points here. We want to make sure we spend at least 10 minutes or so on this. So again, due to time, I'm going to ask you guys to kind of brief your answers and I'll jump right in. If you guys are panelists, we still have multiple participants on. If you see one, if you'll put it in the chat box, I'll get us started. And I think this is a hot topic right now. And David, remote work options. If we're going to retain employees, do companies need to adopt a remote work policy or shouldn't? What's your thoughts?
Well, if they can, some companies and positions they're hiring for are not able to do that. But if they can, it's there's a lot of push right now for work-life balance, and a lot of candidates that are coming in are paying attention to that, and a lot of them are drawn towards remote work. And so if your company can do that, it's good to have that built in where they have positions that require that, but they may have positions, that don't.
Yeah, I mean, so for those in manufacturing or jobs inside, that's harder to have that flexibility. So,
right. So
you're exactly right. But I do think it's something that companies are having to address now that we didn't have to address years ago. Let me ask a question, and I'm gonna go directly over to Mark on this. And Mark, you think companies are having problems retaining employees because they're recruiting the wrong candidates in the first place? You think we're bringing on the wrong people, or do you think there's so many opportunities out there, people are jumping because they're just getting more dollars from other companies?
That's kind of a tough one. I think it really depends on what you're hiring for and what you're doing, but making a hire that doesn't work out, I don't want to say it's a bad hire, making a hire that doesn't work out will set you back. Where if you take a little more time, get to know that person and identify whether or not you feel like that person's gonna be the right one in advance, will help you retain, but also help set your company on a better path.
How do we break that cycle? Robbie, how do you break the cycle of recruiting and retaining and recruiting, and how does a company break the cycle and start keeping these people?
You've got to create a culture where your employees want to come to work. That's different for every employer, but it's got to be a culture that I think recognition is one of the things that comes up. But if you've got a sales leaderboard and you've got a lot of sales guys, and they're fighting constantly to stay at the top and you've got rewards for that, then, that builds culture right there, competitive, good culture. And that's a way that you've got to keep driving your company to build positively, and people need to enjoy coming to work.
So Kim and Robbie just brought up, and I think Jared in the chat box put recognition. Do some companies or some employees more geared toward being recognized than they are always about the dollars? Do you think recognition is important in retaining employees?
I think it's important to recognize your employees for doing a good job and the hard work that they do, but it all depends on the employee, because some employees are good. I really want the recognition. Some people want, want good communication. They want to feel valued. So, and maybe the recognition makes them feel valued because you're recognizing the hard work that they've done. I think that a lot of times, I think it's good to have that across the board, but I think there's some other components that would go with that as well.
So I'm going to jump over to Gary. Gary, now, as new, especially young folks that are coming into the job market now, do you think companies doing a good job at laying out career development goals for their employees? And you think the companies that are laying out a plan where they can grow with them are more apt to keep them?
I think more and more as we see the staffing shortage for the skilled craft piece, I think overall we're just beginning to make positive steps into getting a career path plan. I think up to now it's been weak or not in focus, and then we're beginning to see more companies put that into focus, which is desperately needed. I think you mentioned a key fact of the younger folks joining the workforce. They have a different set of priorities and a different set of expectations than it's a generational component that you have to take into consideration. The younger ones coming in, they've got a different level of expectation, what they want, their career path, and how quickly they want to get to it. And I think companies have to make that adjustment and to say, okay, how do we accomplish what they're looking for? But at the same time, make them to be a valuable part of what we do and not discount those that have been in the business for 20 or 30 years that have the quality of years of experience of hands-on. That's a fine balance. That there's not an easy answer, but every company has to create their culture. And I love Robbie's comment of that each company has a culture and a focus they have to develop to help that younger generation blend with that seasoned, I'll say the seasoned veteran of 30 plus years.
Now that brings me back. I'm going to say about branding your culture. Laurie puts in there, Robbie, how do you do that? Can you give me a specific way? What's a good way to brand your culture? We hear that term, but can we help our companies brand their culture?
So I work with a small company out of South Carolina, the Greenery Incorporated. A lot of y'all are probably familiar with it. They're an ESOP company, and they have branded themselves as an employee-owned company. And they have spent the last 4 to 5 years branding themselves on social media with the different milestones of employees gaining more and more stock in that company, doing great for that company, doing different things. So they really thought outside of the box and put the company in the employees' hands as an ESOP. So just one idea.
So I love that. And I'm going to go back over to David. David, you heard the new term out is engagement. And it's a new buzzword, and you hear it about you got to engage your employees. And if you don't, you'll lose them. Any specific recommendations that we can do to engage our workforce?
Well, I would say there needs to be a real emphasis on onboarding. Because when you've made a decision to hire an employee, then that's your opportunity to invite them into your culture. And there needs to be time spent doing that. And but you have to put yourself in their shoes. They're coming into a completely new world. And, the old saying, people don't always remember what you say, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. And so you think it starts at the beginning, the way you're bringing people on, communicating,
staying
Yeah.
in touch, engaging them.
Yeah, and making them feel part of Robbie's term, making them feel part of the family.
What about
Um,
socials? Do you think companies that have company outings, social?
Yeah. Social events. I think social media, Robbie's using videos and social media is very important because they begin to get a feel for the company. And they say, hey, I'd like to work there. Man, that's a good place to work. And they see a lot more of that in the video on social media, whether it be LinkedIn or whether it be Facebook or whether it be Instagram. They see a lot of that more when they can see it live, so to speak.
Let me ask Mark this question. Mark, I know people put a high emphasis on their company values or a mission statement, and they'll post that. Do you think that's overrated in terms of retaining employees? Or do you think you really need to look for employees that have same type of values? And if we do, how do we detect those during the interview process? How do you know that somebody really has the value that your company has, and before you bring them on? Any guidance there?
I think the only way is to, in your conversations with them, try to get as personal as you can without crossing the line, of asking too much, but getting to know that person and what they do in their spare time and all that sort of thing. That will pull back the cover, so to speak, on who they are, and you'll get a better sense of whether or not their values and the things that they're involved in align with the culture and the things that the company values.
Also, I'm gonna ask this question to all the panelists and just maybe get a brief yes or no. Competitive salaries, do you think companies are having to reevaluate their current salaries in relationship to their competitors or the market to be able to retain employees? Do you think
Yes.
companies are having to focus? So yes.
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 Do you see
Yes.
companies struggling if they're not doing that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's
how
a
often
it-
should they be looking at that, David? How often should they be looking at their salary?
well, a lot more now than they used to. And we deal with this every day with companies, making sure that their entry-level positions are market driven, and are they competitive with the market? And a lot of them don't know that they are, and they're not. And so they have us recruiting for positions that you're just not going to get anybody coming through the door. So it's an education process, and we deal with that every day, letting people know what the market's paying and where those positions are today.
So thank you.
Chris, can I just,
Go ahead, Kim.
yeah, so because of that, and we've always had this at Commerce, but we can provide wage data free of charge to companies. We have 2 different databases that we pull that out of. And I'm seeing more and more of that. And then I'm having those conversations with companies too, because when they're saying they're having trouble recruiting, I'm like, what are you paying? Because if you're not looking at what your competitors doing and your neighbors are doing, then you're not even in the market. So
Right.
That's a great point, Kim. And I think no matter what state you're in, use your resources. Use your Commerce. Kim, thank you for offering that, because that's huge if you're recruiting. Robbie, talking about education, you think companies should assist employees in continuing their education?
Yeah, I think that's really important when it goes back to, promoting within. Maybe you've got somebody at electrical company, a perfect example. You've got somebody who needs to have some type of degree in order to, work on these large projects and those types of things. We've seen a lot of success in companies that offer that. They have, the trade schools and things like that they can go to and do that. And promoting that is a huge opportunity, and goes back to retaining is all about career growth. If I've topped out at this company, I'm going to look somewhere else to go make more money and do other things, bigger and better things.
So I want to answer this, your question. I'll gear that toward to David on this one. Companies grow and job descriptions change. How often should you update your job descriptions? David, if
Yeah, I think ongoing you do. I mean, job descriptions help develop interview questions. Job descriptions help you manage performance. Job descriptions are pretty vital, throughout the process. So you want to keep them updated. But on the employee side, employees need to know what's expected of them, and that's what a job description provides. And so, all of your workers' comp or FMLA, they all require that. So it is important, very important.
so we got 3 minutes left. Kelsey, if you go to that last slide. We're going to finish on time. So if you go back to that one slide before that, what I want to ask all the panelists to do, first, I want to thank you. This is an incredible 1 hour. I know it's hard to believe we're almost over. So thanks those that participated. I know a couple of people chatted. They had to drop off a few minutes early. Again, we value your input. We thank you for your time. And what I'm going to ask is each of our panelists, if you'll take 10 seconds, only about 10 seconds, and kind of wrapped up based everything we've talked about, just something you'd like to leave our participants as we close out here. And again, 10 seconds. We got 2 minutes. Robbie, I'll let you, since I see you first on my screen, just if you'll recap, if something you want to leave with those that are our audience today.
When you're leading off, it's about the maximum amount that you can pay somebody to recruit them from a different company. When it comes to retaining, it's all about growth within your company, becoming part of the family, and really trying to be part of something special. That's kind of, why I'm at my career, recruited with money, and then now I'm part of something special, and I've got the opportunity to grow for the next 20 to 30 years.
David.
From a recruitment standpoint, I think it's opening your eyes to what other people are doing and widening your net, doing different things. From a retainage perspective, I go back to the onboarding. I think that's critical, and because we're dealing with people, and so if you spent time to find them, spend time to keep them.
Now, Mark, we got 10 seconds. I'm going to be a little tighter on your time. 10 seconds. Mark.
All right. More than ever, you have two sets of customers. You've got your clients and you've got your employees, and you got to treat them the same way and take care of them.
That's awesome. I need to write that one down. Good job. Thank you, Mark. Gary, 10 seconds.
I think understanding the cost of benefits that you offer as a company and what's being competitive in the marketplace, not just in your company, but where someone else could go with the same skill set. That's part of what you're comparing yourself against.
Awesome. Kim, you'll close us out. 10 seconds.
Yeah, we've talked about a lot of stuff today, and I'm just going to give a plug that if you want to dive deeper in any of these subjects, I'm happy to come talk to you. Department of Commerce, we're here. We want our business to grow and be successful, and we want to make sure you have the resources to do that. So if there's anything that we can help, we want to make sure that you have those resources.
Okay, guys, it's 11 o'clock. On behalf of Condustrial, our great panelists, Kim, David, Gary, Mark, Robbie, tremendous job. Thank you, guys. Thank you for those that participated. Look more for great webinars in the future from Condustrial. So thank you, guys. Look forward to hearing great relationships coming through this webinar. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everybody. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Everybody.